Wow, you're asking easy questions today, Sophia. Thanks.
You're welcome.
For me, the main thing really is my relationship with Jesus. And so I've got to make time for it. I've got to shape my life around that. And I think very often we can adapt a cultural Christianity that is beautiful and wonderful externally, but internally I'm not aware of his presence. I think it's Bill Johnson who makes this brilliant statement very often. He says, you will always reflect the reality you're most aware of.
Hey guys, we are back with another Q&A with Julian. I'm Sophia. I'm going to jump right in. We're going to talk about committing to the process.
Oh, sweet Jesus. This is the bit where you get skin in the game.
Skin in the game. So what does it look like? Just what are the characteristics of being committed? How do you know?
So what I'm about to share, I think, in kind of the world that we live in, of shortcuts, instant everything, is going to be so counterculture. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the nature of the kingdom. The nature of the kingdom is always counterculture. And I think one of the things that I've had to learn after 44 years on this earth is that integrity matters. In my process of serving, pursuing, opening up the opportunities that God's giving me, the dreams that I'm feeling, the internal integrity matters. That if you haven't figured out what your yes looks like, if you haven't figured out what it means to commit to something, to go after something, if you haven't discovered some of the value systems that will govern your life, you will not be able to be integrous. And I think in the world where we value Botox and makeup, and a facadic lifestyle where we're pursuing like the kind of I've got an image to project, that actually integrity runs counterculture. And we've got to be so clear about our own desire and lifestyle of authenticity that our yes is our yes, our no is our no. That when we commit, we follow through. And that we're okay with having hard questions and conversations as part of the process of discovery. And so I think for me, committing to process right in there is massive. How do I develop an integrous lifestyle? And how do I live from that place?
When you talk about developing an integrous lifestyle, practically, what does that look like?
So for me, one of the big things that Katya and I have done, and that I actually did before I even met Katya as a single person, was develop an internal list of value systems. Mm-hmm. So for me, values like generosity, values like kindness, values like faithfulness, all those things are big deals for me. And so I began to develop an internal list of values about how I'll treat someone else in front of me that has governed and shaped how I live, so that I can be fully integrous, so that I can live fully in line with those values. I think the other thing for me that's been really helpful is making sure that my boundaries are not me-centered, but Jesus-centered, and that in the way of life, interruptions happen, which means I have to live in a place of adaptability. And I think very often when we commit to the process, we have this plan that we think is linear, but very rarely are our plans linear. God seems to take us different ways,
Absolutely.
over hills, below, around. And so I want to live in a place of adaptability. I don't want to be so boundaried about my life that I can't allow for holy interruptions, that I can't allow for inconveniences that lead to greater opportunities of destiny. Adaptability is a big deal. I think the other practical way is learning to be just that, practical. Like I've got to make sure that I get up early. I've got to make sure that I be in the spaces that I need to be in. And I think we make all manner of excuses like, oh, it's not my culture, or that's like a big deal in Africa. We talk about African time. We don't show up on time because it's African time. Mm-hmm. No, if I'm committing to something, there is a level of my yes being my yes. There's a level of making sure that my life is orientated around the things I'm committing to. Because life rarely happens to you. You're making life happen around you. And it's really important that you lean into a practice and a process that helps govern and shape your life. So for me, right now, it is my kids piling into my bedroom at about 5:30 in the morning. We all have snuggle time, talk about the day, and then we get going. My time with Jesus happens a little bit later because life is crazy. Sometimes he will interrupt me at 4:30 in the morning to be praying. Because that's just part of the joy of relationship. And so living an adaptable lifestyle, living a lifestyle that's okay with change, even if your personality is not. I think the other thing in terms of living an integrous lifestyle is pursuing the main thing as the main thing. And for me, the main thing really is my relationship with Jesus. And so I've got to make time for it. I've got to shape my life around that. I've got to be inconvenienced by that. I've got to actually love Jesus. And I think very often we can adapt a cultural Christianity that is beautiful and wonderful externally, but internally I'm not aware of his presence. And the thing about living in this world is you will most often, I think it's Bill Johnson who makes this brilliant statement very often, he says, you will always reflect the reality you're most aware of. And if my internal reality is not centered and focused upon the Jesus that lived and walked on the earth, the Jesus that we see in the Bible, who is not some hippie Jesus who floats around on a cloud, but a very earthy, life-living Jesus who is in the mess of life. And if I'm not centered around who he is, my reality is always going to be out of perspective and distorted.
I love what you're talking about being adaptable. And can you expand into being a person of action, that you're not just someone who's leaning into the voice of God, but actually leaning into putting action into it?
I think one of the things that we somehow do in the Christian world, which is hilarious, is we think that things are going to happen by osmosis. Yes. And so we get this prophetic word.
But they don't?
It sure doesn't. We get this prophetic word and we're like, oh my gosh, God has called me to impact the nations of the earth. And we sit down and carry on with business as usual. The thing is, the Bible says that faith without works is dead. Like, once I get a revelation of the purposes of God, once I come into the dream space, once I see something of God's preferred future for me, I think I've got to orientate my life and walk around that. I've got to start getting ready for that. If I really think this is God, I'm going to have to lean into that. I think things like, I'm using a very extreme example here. God has called you to be an impactful person in the nation of India. You need to get ready for that. Great. What does that mean? I need to start engaging in culture. I need to start figuring out how I want to work with people. Is there a particular dialect or language I should be learning for a particular area? As I'm praying over the map of India, am I being attracted to any space or any place? And that's true for anything. Like, a prepared messenger is better than a prepared message. And I think sometimes we think it's just about, we just got to get the stuff done. We got to, if I'm called to preaching, I just need to be able to get the information out and preach. No, I've got to be prepared for that. And so I've got to be not only adaptable, I've got to be proactive in responding to the purposes of God. Because when I see vision, when I see dreams, when I see God's preferred future, I now have to start preparing to walk into that. Because when I get there, I'll be able to steward it well.
Absolutely. Can you talk about the piece of bringing community in on that? Because I know running with a team makes it a little easier.
I think we have to find our tribe. It's a beautiful thing. I think it's in 2 Corinthians, in the 1st or 2nd chapter. Paul has this amazing opportunity, right, to influence a region. The Bible actually says that an effective door of ministry was opened for me. And Paul is describing this to the Corinthian church, this is effective door, but I could not find Titus there. There's something amazing about that. He values relationship that he has with Titus, his friend, over and above the mission that's in front of him. I think sometimes we're so function-based that we miss the fact that God has designed this kingdom life to be about community. Jesus models this. He's not flying in his private jet from Capernaum to Nazareth to wherever. He is on a road on some donkeys with 12 people, dust of the Middle East, everywhere, having to stop for lunch, having to stop for food, having to go fishing. He's doing life with them, and he's unlocking destiny along the way. And I think it's so important that we find our tribe, because what that does is it holds us to a space of incredible accountability. Yeah. And I love what Chris Valentin says. He says, it's an account for your ability. It's not just about, you're getting this wrong, you're getting that wrong. It's actually, hey, you've got some great plans. There's some great purposes that God has spoken over your life. How do I hold you account for what God has put in you? How are you going to be accountable to see the destiny fulfilled? And so looking for people who aren't just your cheerleading squad, who aren't just going, go Sophia, you can do it, it's all going to be fine. But actually who go, hey Sophia, this aspect of your life seems like there's a lie that you're believing there. How can we help you uncover that lie so you can come into greatness more and more? And I think when we do that, when we invite people into our journey, when we have our dream team who come alongside of us to say, hey, remember the goal, remember where God's taking you. And I think that's why Paul, in some of his letters, feels so despondent. He says, everyone has abandoned me. He's stuck and he's lonely. Because I think loneliness destroys vision. It destroys dreaming. And so when you have people who are alongside of you to feel your dream, to hold you accountable for your dream, to challenge your dream, to help interpret your dream, that's when you start to get into this kind of grace and flow of discovering the preferred future that God has for you and unlocking the dreams that He wants to walk with you through.
So good. Can you talk about just in your life and in your relationships, some of those moments with friends that you've kind of given that charge or reminded them?
Yeah, I there's so many. I think of particularly stepping out into ministry, particularly in different areas of consultation and helping shape people prophetically. I felt so disqualified because I didn't have education, I don't have anything behind my name, quote unquote, but I do have insight, I do have strategy, I do have a prophetic flow that has changed many people's lives, and I've got a track record of all those things. Yet there was this insecurity in me. I remember our creative director, who's one of my best friends, Joshua, sitting me down and just telling me off, like, this is who you are, so get on with it. And it broke me out of this inertia. It broke me out of this cycle of believing lies around, I don't have it, I'm not good enough, will people want to come and listen, will people want to join me in these things, to actually hold on. There's a track record that's developed. There are people who know me really well. And actually, I've shaped people's lives, so therefore I've got authority to do something. And so I think breaking the lies because other people have highlighted it in you is so important. And that, for me, that's been such a real thing. Actually, you need to sort this out, Julian. And then going to God saying, please help me, and discovering a level of freedom because of that.
You brought up, Joshua helping you break inertia. I think breaking inertia and apathy, can you talk more about ways to step into that space or out of that space, I guess?
Yeah, I think the vast majority of people live in a place of apathy because they feel overwhelmed by the needs. They feel overwhelmed by opportunity even sometimes. And I think one of the things that I've learned around breaking apathy and inertia is learning to make consistent decisions that challenge me incrementally. And I think sometimes what we try and do is we try and go, I'm going to climb Mount Everest, but we've not learned how to walk 2 miles. And so learning how to stretch myself incrementally and building the muscle memory that's associated with daily challenge and breaking out of apathy in terms of rest and how I do rest, what I need to be involved in, breaking out of apathy in terms of actually setting time aside to dream and making those incremental changes and scheduling them and holding myself accountable and having other people ask me about that has been magnificent in transforming the way I think. And so I think very rarely do we change apathy by many big decisions, but we do by many little decisions. And it requires us to look full into our lack and say, what are some of the small decisions I now need to make to bring me into abundance, to bring me into a space where I can see what God wants to do.
Very good. I think one of the last questions I have about committing to the process is you're exposing yourself to a space where you're putting everything on the line. I mean, if you're really committed, you're putting everything on the line. How do you stand in that spot?
Wow, you're asking easy questions today, Sophia. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I think faith, the Bible says, is evidence of things unseen. In other words, the degree that I've cultivated the space of faith in my own heart through stepping out regularly, through recording and remembering victories of the past, through celebrating what I've not yet seen as though I've got it, help steady me in the space of faith. And I think one of the things that I love about God and the way that He deals with us in faith is He celebrates our risk. I remember teaching both our kids, Ezekiel and Eva, how to walk. And I would encourage them, walk toward me. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. And they would fall flat on their bottom. And I did not go, you will never walk again. You took a risk and it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
I simply said, amazing. You get great. I'm like cheering them on because they fell on their bottom. And I think God does that with us. And so keeping that perspective, keeping that in a space of, God, you've got me. And so therefore, as I stand in faith in this context, I'm going to believe you that even if this doesn't work out, you're still going to honor the risk that I stepped out in. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I want to encourage our viewers, list some of the areas of victories that God has given you when you have stepped out in faith, because they become the platform for greater levels of faith.
Very good. Thank you for answering my questions. I think I'm ready to commit.
Oh, good.
I'm ready.
Good. Commit to the process, people. Everything will change. When you commit to the process, you get to see the dreams unfold. Guys, thanks for watching us again. So great to have you here. If you have any more Q&A or any comments you want to make, drop it in the comment section. We love hearing from you.